A man can encounter countless faces, endless conversations, and fleeting moments throughout his life. But there are certain women whose presence imprints something far deeper than memory. It's not about how she looked or what she said. It's about how she made him feel. Emotion has a way of carving itself into the soul. It becomes a kind of energy that lingers even when the person is long gone. When a woman leaves a mark on a man emotionally, it is because she reached beyond logic and touched something primal, something that words can't quite define. Her laughter, her tone, the way she made him feel understood without explanation. These moments create an invisible signature in his heart. It's not about grand gestures or dramatics, it's the subtlety, the quiet power of presence that stays. When a man recalls her, he may not recall every detail of her appearance, but he remembers the warmth in her eyes when she listened, the calm in her voice when he was lost, the way her energy seemed to still the noise around him. Those are the memories that embed themselves in his emotional core. When a woman connects with a man emotionally, she transcends attraction. She becomes an experience. There's a difference between being wanted and being felt. To be felt is to be remembered on a level that logic can't erase. She becomes the echo of safety, inspiration, or passion that he returns to in moments of silence. Men are often taught to suppress emotion, to hide vulnerability, yet when a woman reaches into that hidden space and makes him feel safe enough to open, it rewires something inside him. She doesn't need to fix him or teach him, she simply sees him. And when a man feels seen, truly seen, he never forgets that moment. The connection may last a season or a lifetime, but its energy outlives both. Sometimes it's not even about love in the romantic sense. It can be the way she encouraged him when no one else believed, the way she smiled at him like he mattered when he was invisible to the world, or the way her honesty pierced through his defenses. Emotion has memory. The body remembers the tone of voice that calmed the chaos, the touch that carried comfort without demand, the gaze that carried quiet acceptance. These are the emotional fingerprints she leaves behind. They don't fade with distance or time because they are tied to transformation. Every man remembers the woman who shifted his emotional rhythm, who awakened a feeling he didn't know existed, who made him feel something too powerful to dismiss. It could be peace, love, passion, or even pain, but the depth of that emotion becomes the thread connecting her to his memory. Even years later, when her name is barely spoken, something inside him still responds when he recalls that feeling. It's the invisible residue of emotion, a reminder of what it means to be alive, to have felt something real in a world that often feels mechanical and detached. There's a rare kind of woman who doesn't just enter a man's life to share moments with him. She enters to reflect his potential back to him, to hold up a mirror to the greatness he often forgets resides within. She sees beyond the surface, beyond what he shows to the world, and touches the part of him that he hides behind silence, fear, or pride. She doesn't just compliment him, she awakens something in him. Her presence challenges him not by force, but by inspiration. She doesn't tell him who to become, she simply believes in who he already is, and that belief begins to shape his reality. When a man encounters such a woman, he is drawn not only to her beauty or her mind, but to the reflection of himself that he sees in her eyes. She makes him want to rise, to be better, to live up to the version of himself that she effortlessly brings out. This kind of woman doesn't push him with words, she moves him through energy. Her confidence becomes contagious. Her faith in her own worth reminds him of his. She can challenge him without making him feel small, correct him without crushing his spirit, and support him without losing herself in the process. When she looks at him, he feels capable, not because she told him so, but because her presence demands the truth of who he can be. She sees through the layers of doubt, through the mask he wears to protect his ego, and she speaks to the man underneath it all. She holds space for his growth with grace and strength, allowing him to stumble, but never letting him forget that he was built for more. That kind of reflection is unforgettable because it awakens both pride and humility in him. In a world where many people mirror weakness, she mirrors power. Where others see his flaws, she sees potential. Where others criticize, she understands. She doesn't inflate his ego, she expands his vision. Her belief becomes his reminder. When he's around her, he feels more aligned, more focused, more disciplined. She doesn't do it by trying to change him, but by being an example of her own evolution. Her energy communicates a standard. She embodies purpose, and that ignites his own. The memory of such a woman lingers not because of what she gave him, but because of what she awakened inside him. When she leaves, he doesn't just miss her, he misses who he was when he was with her. He misses the fire she drew out of him, the strength she helped him see, the calm confidence that came from her belief. Her reflection became his motivation, her faith became his fuel. Even years later, when he's moved on or found someone else, a part of him still carries the imprint of that reflection. She becomes a quiet force in his journey, the invisible whisper that reminds him of his capability every time he doubts himself. She becomes the standard of connection that others are measured against, not because she was perfect, but because she was real enough to make him see the best version of himself. There's a certain power that radiates from a woman who is unapologetically herself, a kind of magnetic grace that doesn't come from trying to impress anyone or prove anything. It's the mystery of authenticity, the quiet strength that lives in a woman who knows who she is and refuses to shrink to fit into someone else's expectations. Men never forget that kind of woman because she carries something the world doesn't teach, an energy that feels both comforting and unpredictable at once. She doesn't chase attention, she naturally draws it by being aligned with her truth. Her allure doesn't come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from the effortless confidence of imperfection. When she laughs, it's genuine. When she speaks, her words carry weight because they come from depth, not performance. Her presence has a stillness that disarms people, a calm that reminds men what authenticity truly feels like in a world full of masks. She doesn't compete for validation or change her nature to be liked. Her authenticity creates safety because it tells a man that he doesn't have to perform either. Around her, he feels grounded, seen, and invited to drop his own pretenses. She isn't trying to be mysterious. Her mystery comes from being real in a world that rewards imitation. Men remember her because she is the contrast to everything superficial. While others try to impress through appearance or charm, she moves differently. Her beauty feels timeless because it's connected to her energy, not her reflection. She can be quiet and still command attention because her confidence is not loud, it's alive. She doesn't reveal everything about herself, she lets people discover her layers naturally, the way you unfold the pages of a story written with truth. That gradual unveiling keeps her presence memorable long after she's gone. Authenticity is magnetic because it's rare. When a man encounters it, it shakes something within him. He may not understand it at first, but he feels it. It's the feeling of being in the presence of someone who doesn't need approval to exist. She walks in her own rhythm, follows her own intuition, and sets boundaries not from arrogance but from self-respect. That balance of softness and strength lingers in a man's mind because it feels like freedom. He can sense that she is not easily swayed, not easily owned, not easily impressed. And yet when she gives her attention, it feels earned and sacred. Her authenticity also brings unpredictability, not in the sense of chaos, but in the sense of depth. He can't categorize her, can't predict her next move, because she's not following a script. She's following truth. That unpredictability becomes irresistible because it reflects realness in its purest form. She reminds him that connection is not about control. It's about discovery. The woman who embodies authenticity becomes a symbol of what it means to be free, what it means to live fully without apology. She leaves a trace of her energy in every room she walks through and in every man who crosses her path because what she represents, truth, confidence, and vulnerability, cannot be forgotten once experienced. There's something profoundly unforgettable about the woman who carries healing energy without ever trying to be a savior. She doesn't arrive in a man's life to fix him, but somehow her presence begins to soothe the parts of him that were restless and unsettled. She offers warmth without losing her strength, compassion without losing her clarity, love without losing herself. Her power lies in balance. She knows how to care deeply while remaining anchored in her own peace. Men remember her because she becomes the calm after the storm, the rare soul who listens not to respond, but to understand. She has mastered the art of emotional depth without drowning in anyone else's chaos. There is an invisible comfort in her company, a sense of safety that makes a man lower his guard, often without realizing he's doing it. Her energy communicates something words cannot. It says, "You can breathe here." This kind of woman doesn't rescue, she restores. She doesn't offer sympathy that weakens, but empathy that strengthens. She reminds him that he is capable, that he is seen, that his flaws do not define his worth. When she listens, it's not just hearing words, it's tuning into emotion, sensing what lies beneath what's said. Men never forget her because she makes them feel emotionally understood in a way that is rare. She brings presence to a world that often rushes past feelings. Her softness doesn't come from fragility, it comes from wisdom. She has likely walked through her own storms, learned to heal her own wounds. And because of that, she knows the language of compassion on a level few can speak. She knows that healing doesn't come from trying to control or correct someone. It comes from acceptance, from showing up with quiet strength, from holding space rather than filling silence with solutions. When a man meets such a woman, he often feels something unfamiliar: peace. It's not excitement or thrill at first. It's the subtle comfort of being able to be himself. He can share his fears without being judged, express his vulnerability without being shamed. She has boundaries that keep her energy pure. She knows when to step back, when to stay, when to let things unfold naturally. That emotional discipline makes her unforgettable because she never loses herself in love. She offers depth without dependency. She is the kind of woman who knows that real connection thrives not in control, but in trust. Her presence becomes an emotional sanctuary, not because she's perfect, but because she's present. Even when she walks away, her energy lingers like a memory of peace. A man may not realize it at the time, but later, when life becomes noisy again, he'll think of her calm. He'll remember how her words carried weight without volume, how her silence felt reassuring, how her presence made chaos feel manageable. That's the kind of woman men never forget, the one whose energy healed not by changing them, but by reminding them what inner stillness feels like. Her absence leaves a space that no distraction can fill, because what she gave wasn't attention or excitement. It was peace, and peace once tasted can never be forgotten. There is a kind of strength that doesn't roar, doesn't fight, doesn't beg to be understood. It's the quiet, unshakable strength of a woman who knows when to walk away. She doesn't leave because she stopped caring. She leaves because she finally realized that her peace costs more than someone else's comfort. There is a rare grace in her departure, a calm acceptance that speaks louder than confrontation ever could. She doesn't chase, she doesn't explain, she doesn't try to rewrite the story. She simply steps back with dignity, and that image burns itself into a man's memory in ways words never could. A man never forgets the woman who walked away with grace, because her absence becomes her statement. She doesn't seek closure. Her silence is closure. She doesn't seek revenge. Her growth is revenge. She doesn't demand recognition. Her peace becomes her power. When a man looks back at the woman who left without bitterness, he remembers not just the moment she walked away, but everything that led to it, the patience she showed, the understanding she offered, the chances she gave. He remembers how she stayed long after she was unappreciated, hoping something would change, giving more than she received, believing in potential until the weight of it broke her open. And then, one day, she simply stopped fighting for what no longer fought for her. That kind of strength leaves a mark because it is rare to see someone choose self-respect over attachment. Men remember her because she did what most people can't do. She valued her own energy enough to withdraw it from where it was taken for granted. She didn't walk away to punish, she walked away to protect her spirit. Her grace in that moment becomes unforgettable because it shifts the dynamic entirely. Instead of anger, she leaves behind an aura of acceptance. Instead of chaos, she leaves calm. That contrast stays with a man. In time, he begins to understand that what she offered wasn't weakness disguised as kindness. It was love given from purity. And when she walked away, he realizes the magnitude of what he lost. She becomes the one who taught him the value of presence by removing hers. The way she carried herself, with her head held high and her emotions intact, becomes a silent lesson in self-worth. Her departure teaches more than her presence ever could. Even in her absence, her energy lingers. He may see her face in strangers, hear her voice in memory, feel her calm in moments of regret. The image of her leaving, not in anger but in grace, becomes a reminder of what it means to love without losing yourself. That kind of woman doesn't just disappear from a man's life, she transforms it. She becomes the invisible standard against which he measures every woman who comes after, not because she was perfect, but because she knew her worth. Her silence echoes longer than her words ever did, and that quiet dignity remains in his memory as the moment he realized that losing her wasn't just losing a person. It was losing peace, kindness, and depth all at once. There is a kind of woman whose presence doesn't just touch a man's heart. It transforms his entire perception of himself and the world around him. She's not necessarily the loudest, the most beautiful, or the most charming, but there's something about her energy that becomes a turning point in his life. She awakens something inside him that he didn't know existed, something deeper than attraction or admiration. She inspires him to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of himself, not through demands or control, but simply through the power of her example. She lives with intention, with purpose, with authenticity, and that energy becomes contagious. When a man encounters such a woman, he begins to question his own direction, his habits, his beliefs. She doesn't tell him what to do. She reminds him of who he truly is beneath the layers of fear and limitation. Her influence becomes a catalyst, not because she tries to change him, but because her very presence makes him want to rise. This kind of woman enters a man's life like a quiet storm. At first, he may not even realize her impact. She might challenge him to think differently, to feel more deeply, to see value where he once saw routine. She calls him out when he hides from his truth, not to belittle him, but to remind him of his strength. She sees potential in him even when he cannot see it himself, and that vision plants a seed that begins to grow long after she's gone. She doesn't need to preach transformation, she embodies it. Her consistency, her depth, her discipline, they become a mirror reflecting the greatness he's capable of. She's not intimidated by his flaws because she understands that everyone is a work in progress. Her love isn't a cage, it's a mirror that shows him his reflection. And for the first time, he sees who he could become if he stopped running from himself. Men never forget the woman who changed the direction of their lives, even subtly. She could have been the one who encouraged him to follow his dream when no one else did, the one who made him face his emotional walls, or the one whose absence forced him to finally grow up. Sometimes her influence comes disguised as pain. The lessons she leaves behind might not be wrapped in romance. They might come through heartbreak, silence, or distance. But even in that, she becomes unforgettable because growth and pain often share the same space. When he looks back, he realizes that her role in his life was never about permanence. It was about awakening. She became a chapter of transformation, a living reminder of the person he could be if he chose courage over comfort. Even years later, her words still echo in his mind, her energy still lingers in his memory, and her impact continues to unfold in quiet moments of reflection. She becomes a part of his evolution, a spiritual fingerprint that can't be erased. Every time he levels up, every time he makes a better choice, every time he reaches for more, a part of him remembers her. Because she wasn't just someone he loved, she was someone who helped him meet himself.